Hello. Well, here we are on our 25th episode in our Science of Compliance podcast, where we aim to debunk myths around compliance being a business roadblock to show how governance, risk, and compliance can enable your business not only to survive, but thrive, particularly now through turbulent times. And in this episode, we welcome Professor Andy Pardoe, Director of Wisdom Works, a software development firm specializing in AI, to better understand the fourth industrial revolution, which I write about extensively. I'll try and get past the background here in my book, my latest book, Culture Coding, and available on Amazon and every good bookstore near you. But really, what Andy's practical experience is all about is developing AI and generative AI solutions for varying marketplaces, not just retail financial services. So, welcome, Andy.
Thank you very much, Chris. It's a pleasure to be here, and Happy New Year to you and all of your listeners.
Happy New Year to your good self, Andy. So I think it will be helpful for our listeners and viewers. But by the way, this is our first videoed version of the Science of Compliance podcast, and you are our first videoed guest. So that's great news.
I'm honoured to be the first one that you do video and audio for.
Yeah,
so
and I can vouch for you're not an AI avatar either.
No.
So, what we always ask about in these sessions is podcast episodes is we want to get to know the person and we want to get to know their journey. So just tell us a bit about your background and your journey, from where you started and where you are today.
Sure, yeah, thank you. And yeah, it's been quite an interesting journey for me. So as long as I can remember, I was always fascinated by AI and how does the brain work and that kind of thing, and I was really keen to sort of learn as much as I could about it. And I studied computer science at A level, showing my age now, did A levels, went on to do a sort of computer systems engineering degree at Warwick Uni, then stayed on to do a PhD in machine learning as it was then, and really was just always fascinated by what you could do with the technology even then. And this was 27 years ago, so a really long time. No one was at that stage, no one was really that interested in AI and machine learning. No one really trusted it or believed in it. Certainly the term data scientist wasn't really sort of commonplace in those days. And I actually got really lucky. So I did my PhD and then I managed to get a job working for a company called Racal Research and Racal Messenger. And we were building one of the first number plate recognition systems for motorway speed cameras and police car applications and car parking. And that was using neural networks to sort of read the letters on the number plate. But it was pretty hardcore. So we were coding that machine learning sort of neural network in machine code rather than Python or any of these sort of easier frameworks to use these days. So really geeky stuff in those days, and did that for a while, and then decided to move to London, work in the banking sector, because I felt that A, they got tons of data, and B, that they would really want to do lots of sort of data analytics to sort of squeeze the insights from that. And it was initially, I have to say, it was a little disappointing because they were keeping historic data but not really analyzing it that much. So I then spent the next part of my career just sort of learning my career as a sort of dev manager, running teams of developers, building software and big data platforms eventually. And then eventually the financial services and the banks got interested in machine learning, and sort of I then helped when I was at Credit Suisse, I helped set up the sort of machine learning working group and sort of brought everyone together that was interested to sort of move forward with the technology. And so did that. And then I got headhunted by Accenture and worked for Accenture for a couple of years. And that was great because it allowed me to not just work in financial services, but work across other industries as well, and just to sort of see where different industries were with their adoption of the technology. And did that for a few years, and then decided to set up my own sort of tech consultancy business, which is what Wisdom Works is right now. And working with all sorts of clients, really, from startups to sort of PLCs, and helping both on their strategy, but also on their sort of adoption and implementation as well. So it's a really varied set of services we provide, and we work with all sorts of clients. So it's a fascinating time.
Yeah, great, and a key, and thanks for that. It's a fascinating journey, Andy. I'll be honest with you, and certainly, I think just spinning off on what you just said there, there's a couple of things. Disclaimer, by the way, folks. Andy has just built and team have just built out our AI chatbot, compliance chatbot, which we think is probably going to be one of the first in the marketplace using generative AI. And we're testing it at the moment, and it's coming up trumps. So you've done a great job. So I can vouch for Wisdom and Works and the services that you offer. But I think our viewers and listeners will be interested, Andy, in your experience in the banking sector, certainly, because the biggest problem that we see in the marketplace, to a certain degree, it's getting a little bit better now, but still not that much better, is about the quality of the data, because it's that old adage about rubbish in, rubbish out. And when you've got for example, in our world, the FCA coming in and saying on the consumer duty, well, we need you, IFAs, wealth managers, financial planners, banks, whatever, to mortgage providers, protection brokers, to employ data analytics. Well, if you haven't got the great data in the first place, that's still going to cause a problem. So what are your thoughts around that?
It's a really it's a really interesting one, and sometimes we get clients sort of say, oh, we can't do any data analytics because our data's in a mess and we need to sort that out. And to some degree that's true, but the reality is, and certainly for the banks and financial services, it's a constant program of work, right? So we've been sort of on this journey of data management, data quality, replatforming, going from sort of siloed databases to big data lakes, all these kind of sort of programs of sort of consolidating data, improving the quality of data. This is an ongoing program, so you're never going to finish that, because there's always going to be more things to do. What you have to do is say, okay, we want to do some data analytics in this area. Let's look at the quality of our data in that particular space, and what do we need to do to improve that. And I remember talking to business users where they were really interested in using sort of machine learning and AI to do very specific things. And then you kind of ask them the question, well, do we have the data to help make that decision? And they go, actually, no, we haven't even captured that information yet. And it's like, okay, well, we need to update the user interface to capture that data to then allow us to make that kind of decision-making sort of capability. So it's a massive factor, and data is the oil, if you like, of sort of machine learning and data analytics. So if you don't have good data management and data quality, you are going to suffer. But also you can use machine learning to help improve the data quality. So I sometimes sort of push back and say, well, let's use some machine learning to identify problems with the data quality and help to improve that as well. So it's an interesting one, and I think no company, no department will have perfect quality data. Right? It just doesn't exist, right? So, but that you have to actively manage that and improve it over time. And you're right, the better quality data you have, the better outcomes you're going to get in any kind of sort of decision-making sort of process. So it is important. It is something, it's a foundational thing that you need in place. But I try to encourage people, well, let's get started. Let's see how bad a problem it is. And then that will actually give you the mandate to then improve the quality of the data if you can't then make good decisions off the back of what you have. So it's an interesting one for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. And in an ever-changing world, we're always going to have issues with data, because it's like AI, it's just non-stop and it's getting faster and faster and faster.
Yeah, for
Tell
sure.
us a bit about your career challenges, as you move through your career into where you are today and how you overcame them.
Yeah, it's interesting, right? So I get asked for sort of bits of career advice from sort of people that I work with all the time. I think one of the biggest sort of things that I realized to sort of accelerate my career was always look at how you can solve problems for your boss, right? So don't give them problems, try and solve problems. So I've always looked for opportunities where I
Yeah,
can see my boss has got an issue. How can I help alleviate that and sort of help be part of the solution? So I'll give you a great examples, right? So there was someone in our team I knew had decided to move to another team. So that immediately gave my boss a problem because that guy was looking after a system
yeah,
and who was going to take that over. So I volunteered. I said, look, I'll take it, I'll take that on, even though it was more work for me, but it just gave me a bigger platform longer term. And so it's just little things like that that you can do that sort of helps you to sort of accelerate your career
sure.
where you can. I also used to do what I call a geek week. So I would take a bit of time off and I would sort of sharpen the saw, as it were, and sort of, research the latest tech and play about with the latest stuff so that I was always keeping ahead of technology. So as a technologist, you've always got to look and learn new skills and new languages and new sort of architectures, all of that. So you have to invest in yourself basically to sort of keep you sort of relevant and keep you at the sort of cutting edge. And I think that's even more relevant now than it was sort of 5 or 10 years ago because the tech is moving so quickly now. It's
Yeah,
blistering rate and to the point where new things are coming halfway through a project and you're like, okay, well, maybe we can use this model instead of that model. And
yeah.
it's insane. It really is. I've never seen the world of AI move so fast as it has done in the last sort of 12, 18 months. It's just, yeah, crazy.
Yeah, it's almost like the industry's come to you, isn't it? In your
Yeah. Yeah, yeah,
um,
definitely.
so thanks for that. And I think one of the big just like to focus on a little bit on how you're working to help firms in across industries. I know you work
Sure.
across industries meet challenges using AI, but just to give some context for our listeners and viewers on that. A model office, what we the way we view um, technology, and particularly AI, um, it's almost like a prosthetic. It's like a decision support. Because if so, for example, Daniel Kahneman's latest book that he wrote with a number of others, collaborators, Noise,
Mm.
about bias, what goes on in our decision making from that, and then noise, which is more emotionally driven, what's going on, time of day we're making decisions based on have we eaten or not, or what the weather
Yeah,
is, things like that, external influences can
sure.
actually have a detrimental effect on decision making. And that can be really, really dangerous when you're talking, particularly in retail financial services, regarding regulations and
Yes.
compliance.
Yeah.
I'd just be interested in your thoughts around that, and also expanding on how you're actually helping, how your AI services are helping, your clients meet ongoing challenges.
Yeah. So there's two kind of sides to what we do. So for some clients, we start the engagement really from a point of education and discovery. So some clients come to us and they go, we've heard about AI, but we just don't know where to start. And so we really start with that sort of AI vision, educating the C-suite, helping to sort of uncover potential use cases in their business that could support them and sort of help them solve problems. And I always try to focus, you know, people and companies and C-suites on let's not use AI just for the sake of it. Let's understand what are the real problems in your business, and maybe AI is the solution. It may not be, or it may be part of the solution, but it could be automation. It could be all sorts of things in addition or in place of AI. So really, it's about trying to solve real problems. And we work with clients to sort of work on their AI strategy and their roadmap and sort of understand what they can do
Yeah.
and should do maybe, and what the right way to do that is. So that's very much on the sort of consulting sort of strategy side of things. And then for other clients, either those clients will then lead into working with us to help with implementations, or we get other clients that come to us and say, we just need help with our data science activities. Can you help us with that and help build models for specific things? So we do the sort of implementation side, where we sort of help build, whether it's a chat bot, data analytics more generally, or other things. So those are the kind of two sides to how we sort of start the engagement typically with clients. And often, this will start with me just doing a talk to the board of a company, or a sort of the senior leaders, just to sort of get people thinking about the technology. And often it's about taking a company on a journey of a sort of understanding and accepting the technology, right? Because it can be quite scary for people if they think, oh, my job's going to be, removed in a few years' time with all this tech. And, most companies, it's not about that. It's just about improving productivity and actually freeing up the human resources to do the more challenging, difficult work, because we can automate the mundane. And that term, automate the mundane, is a really frequently used term I use, because this is ultimately what we're trying to do. Let's automate stuff that's really, very repetitive, very easy to make mistakes, but stuff that we can automate and use sort of machine learning and AI to help with that. So we can actually, as humans, can do the more interesting work, right? And I think everyone would love that, right? If we can, take 20% of our work that's sort of the dull, admin-y, boring stuff, and then free that up to do more interesting work, then that's super interesting. So I think there's all of that really sort of feeds into what we try and do. And for companies, it is looking across the entire value chain of a business. So it's looking at where they have touch points with their customers. So whether that's the sales and marketing side, or whether that's the sort of customer support area. But then the whole back office operation. So how can you make the sort of back office of a business more efficient and sort of operationally robust? But then also the third area, which can often be overlooked, is how can you integrate the technology into your own products and services as well? And that seems to be an increasing sort of area of focus with businesses now. Certainly last year with ChatGPT, everyone's like, oh, well, maybe we can use this in our own product and service. And I think that's really opened the floodgates to that sort of area of integrating AI into different businesses.
Yeah, thanks for that. And I think there's a couple of points that I'd just like to chunk down on there that you've mentioned. I think the big one, well, there's two big ones really. The first is all about. I wrote an article for Professional Advisor recently about the fact that I don't believe that a lot of firms, the majority of firms in the marketplace who are looking at AI, have a strategy, a proper strategy, and that's really the first point. A port of call. The firms definitely need to do the governance, the due diligence, understand, as you say, what they've already got. There's always problems with legacy systems and technologies. There's always problems with firms that've got tech stacks that don't talk to the tech in the tech stack doesn't talk, and APIs just either don't exist or they're just not fit for purpose. So there's all that piece. But the other piece that you mentioned as well, which I think is really I'm always kind of challenged when I'm in the marketplace, Andy, about, I'm an optimist. I'm glass half full, and it's going to be fantastic, whatever. But because that's the type of character I am. But we do have to recognise that, as ever with humans, we don't like change,
Yeah.
and yet we're very adaptable as a species. But the fact is that I guess the question for you is: do you think AI is a challenge, or can be a challenge, and it could face in job losses, and really existential, threats like cyber threats, for example? What are your views on that?
Yeah, so I mean, I see AI as a real disruptive technology, and that brings both huge benefits, but also huge risks and challenges as well. And I think it's how we can maximize the benefits and
Yeah,
minimize the risks and challenges will be how well this technology really sort of sticks, as it were. So I, huge challenges, huge problems. I think the whole regulatory and risk sort of area, data privacy and data trust is huge, and I think we're only starting to see this play in. And I think there are many aspects to that. There's the data that's being used to train these foundational models, but also, you know, when we're providing all of this additional information in prompts and context, how is that being handled and managed by the sort of tech vendors that we're working with? And that was a real concern with OpenAI initially, sort of last year, and with Microsoft and others. They're playing more sort of more focus on sort of data security and data trust sort of issues. But I think uh, how these algorithms have been trained in the first place is a big concern, and I think we'll see a lot more sort of focus on that this year. I think last year for me was sort of that sort of initial sort of honeymoon period, if you like, and now things are starting to sort of get a bit more mature, and everyone's sort of scratching their head and thinking, hang on a minute, there's some issues here. We need to sort of deal with this. And I think the technology will mature, but also we need to sort of focus on, how do we manage those risks and challenges. And I think, with any new technology, there will be people's roles will change. There will be some jobs that maybe become less needed. There will be other roles that come into play. I was talking yesterday about sort of the role of a prompt engineer. This
yeah,
is a role that didn't exist
yeah.
12 months ago, but all of a sudden people are getting jobs as prompt engineers, right? So there will be new jobs and new roles come up as much as some roles sort of disappear. And I think the challenge will be the roles that disappear, the people that did those maybe will, it's more of a challenge for them to reskill up to sort of take some of the newer roles. So that's where governments need to come in and provide support and help for that transition. As you say, people aren't good with change, and it becomes quite a difficult period of time. And again, how we manage that as a society and globally, I think, will be really important. I think the challenge is the genie is out of the bottle. I think what we've seen last year is that all of a sudden people have realized that AI actually works and we can actually gain massive benefit. And I think that's where businesses are now rushing to figure out, what does that mean for our business? How can we leverage this to gain benefit? And I think it is, there's a bit of a gold rush now. And I think, as with any innovative technology, there'll be those early adopters that gain maximum benefit from it, and there'll be the laggards that behind the times, and maybe suffer because they're not gaining the benefits that can be realized from the tech. But I think the other thing to say, Chris, is that the big tech firms are making it seem that it's really easy to use these technologies. And I think to some degree that's true for simple use cases. But the reality is, when you get into the detail, most businesses have quite complicated use cases and very specific requirements. And that means that there's some customization, there's some tailoring, and there's some skill needed to sort of build those robust systems. So That's one of the issues that I'm seeing at the moment with clients. They're sort of thinking, oh, this is all super easy and off we go. And yes, you can get started super quick, right? And that's great. But the devil's in the detail, and there will be things that needs to be sort of factored in to sort of give you a sort of ethically sound, robust solution that sort of, hits all of your sort of principles and allows you to sort of have the confidence in what you're deploying to your customers.
Correct. Yeah, and as I said at the start, we're definitely in a industrial level revolution, a digital one.
For sure.
It's classed as the fourth. From that side of it, I'm just kind of like interesting as we kind of come to the end of the podcast. Just understanding a bit more around that risk of AI, because where we see the way, I'll be honest with you, Andy, the way we see the risk is that people don't grasp the opportunity with AI. So it's kind of like a different risk. So there'll be, like you're talking about the laggards, there'll be lots of captains of their business ships, if you like, asleep at the wheel, I hate to say, where they're just missing it and they need to do something about it and they're going to get caught. And we've seen it before, Kodak, Blockbuster, and there's plenty of examples of this happening. The other risk that I see, I guess, is we do a lot around behavioral economics and behavioral science and what sits behind model office, and a big part of the human condition is that we're naturally quite lazy. We'd rather be sat on a beach drinking mojitos or some mass majority of us than work. I actually enjoy being far more being at work actually, but keeps me out of trouble. But I think the thing there is that there's a whole piece around, as I wrote a book about the inverted U curve, where a bit of social science, where it's looking at the optimal use of technology is such where everybody is highly engaged and they're optimized and they are effectively really efficient. And then if it gets too much, they become lazy because all of a sudden the AI, in this case, does the job, a lot of the jobs for them. And that's a very tricky balancing act to play for organizations. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, it's a great question. And I think the future of work is definitely changing quite rapidly. And I think we will all you talked a little bit about career advice earlier on in this podcast, and I think one of the key sort of things for people in their careers going forward would be, how do they leverage AI tools and applications to accelerate their capabilities as an employee? And I think we will all be augmented by digital assistants and AI agents to help us sort of do things better, quicker, more efficiently. And I think that's the reality of the future workplace. I agree with you that companies they do get lazy. They just enjoy the revenue streams that they have and go, why would we change anything? It's going really well. But, that's a point in time. And if you don't innovate, if you don't look to the future, you will become a Blockbusters or a Kodak, right? And I think that is the challenge, that companies have to invest in innovation. And I think for the SME market, that's really tough because you don't necessarily have a huge amount of resources to sort of invest in that, and you have to sort of cherry pick and figure out what is the right things to do. And with this kind of technology, part of the beauty and challenge with AI is you can use it everywhere. But that means, how do you prioritize where to use it? Because no sort of company is going to roll out the use of AI everywhere instantly. What you have to do is, again, look at the problems that you've got. How can the technology help solve those, and focus on those? And then, it's the sort of land and expand, learn from that, and then start to sort of increase your use of it as you get more comfortable with it. But I think it's a brave new world, right? And I think we're all the next 10, 20 years, I mean, we talk about this sort of exponential increase in technology, and I think the next sort of 5, 10 years, we're going to see so much more happening and impacting our lives and both our personal and working lives than we've seen in the last sort of decades. And you know, that's both super exciting, but also super scary because no one really knows what that means, right? And I don't, and no, nobody does really. So where this is going to go and what this is going to look like, and you know, which companies will win and which will lose, who knows, right? I mean, it's you know, and I'm sure there will be, like we've seen Google, you know, winning the sort of search engine wars, you know, with Yahoo years ago, and you know, things will come and go, and we'll see new companies rise and others fall, and I think that's just the nature of the circle of life, right? And that's just the way it is. But I think AI will be the driving force behind a lot of that change over the next sort of decade or two, for sure.
Yeah, I agree with you. And I think harnessed well, and I think you mentioned ethics, which is really important. You've also got the regulations coming through right now,
Yeah.
EU in particular, America and the UK are now beginning to look at it rather than just rely on old rules and regs, which aren't fit for purpose, in my opinion. So that's going to be an interesting space. What you don't want is literally let you know the horse has bolted, and you know you're closing the gate after the horse.
Yeah, and it's
Bolted.
getting the balance right with that,
It
Chris,
is.
because I think, you know, the sort of the EU are maybe more sort of constrained and controlling in their sort of AI regulation. I
Yeah.
think the US are pretty much sort of free and loose, and the UK
Yeah.
are trying to find that happy medium, right?
Yeah.
So
Getting the
it's
balance.
a tough one. It's a tough one because the tech is moving so quickly,
Hmm.
and you know, as I've said, the sort of horse is almost bolted already, right? But
Yeah.
it's kind of how do we sort of make this robust and scalable so we can all use it in a really
Yeah.
safe way that everyone's sort of comfortable and happy? And it's building, I think digital trust is going to be a huge topic over the next sort of few years, and how we
Yeah.
build that you know, with you know, our consumers and customers and clients is going to be really important for us.
Yeah, that's true. I can't remember the name of the consultancy now. It will come to me at some stage. But there's a big consultancy in the States who've been doing a trust index for 50 odd years. And
Mm,
Endelman,
yeah.
consultancy in the States. And the interesting thing there is that the last, I think, decade or whatever it is that retail financial services has been rock bottom.
Mm,
Banking and so forth has been rock bottom. And the top of the tree on trust has been technology, thanks to
yeah.
Apple, Google, Microsoft, you.
Yeah. I
So
think the
if you
other
blend, well, I'll just finish on that one. If you can blend the two together, fintech, then
yes.
you know actually you could generate that digital trust you talked about.
Yeah. And I think with digital trust also comes that sort of hyper personalization, right?
Mm.
Because we all want an individual service, and that means the companies that we sort of interact with have to know us really well in order
Yeah,
to do that. But then we need to trust them with the information to be
yeah,
able to provide that personalized service. So it's a sort of vicious circle almost. But yeah, it's fascinating times, honestly. It's
it
so
is.
exciting to be working in the tech industry right now, for sure.
There's a great consultancy out there called Innovate AI, and one of the partners, the founding partners, is an ex Dragon's Den, Piers Linney. If
Yeah.
you remember Piers Linney, and I listened to their talk and his partner Alok's talk last summer. And the big thing that came out from that is that, look, you know, this is the worst AI is going to be. It's only going to get way better than where we currently are, you know, and
Yeah.
you're already seeing that, you know, ChatGPT is coming out with new iterations, which we've incorporated thanks to you guys into our chatbot. You know, you've got all sorts of new productivity going on and innovation going on in the space. So we're coming to the end of the podcast episode. I always end these with what I call blow the door, you know, big questions, which hopefully you'll enjoy, Andy. So
Okay, go on.
tell our listeners and viewers one thing about you that others don't know and you're willing to share.
Blimey. Okay. So yeah, this sort of goes back to my early life and potentially a very different career path for me. So when I was very young, I played the violin and I was in the
Right.
county orchestra, and I was pretty good at the time. And all of my teachers and everyone thought I was just going to be a music teacher.
Right.
And but no one asked me what I wanted to be. And it was certainly wasn't. I enjoy playing the violin as a hobby,
Yeah.
but it certainly wasn't something I saw as a career for myself. So that could have been quite an interesting change if I'd have just followed the flow with that. So, and actually, I always keep thinking I should sort of get myself a violin and start playing again, but I just don't have the time, quite frankly. So, would
Yeah.
be nice to do.
You'll build an avatar of yourself playing
I
it,
think I should
an
do. I
AI
should do.
avatar playing a violin.
I
Um,
think I will.
yeah, and if you could change one thing about industry that you operate in, what or think of it from maybe even the AI industry where we are today, what would it be?
Such a good question. I think so I'm a proud Brit, and I love how innovative the UK has been for such a long time. And
Yeah.
I I think we need to nurture our mad inventors a bit more. And I think the sort of the VC ecosystem here in the UK could do a lot more to sort of help in that sort of sector. So I'd love to see investors in the UK take a few more risks and believe in the historic nature and innovative nature of UK researchers and academics and mad inventors. I think we need to keep that going, and I'd love to see more opportunities for those kind of things to happen. And for the sort of the UK sort of VC and angel networks to have a bit more faith and trust in sort of the mad scientists. So that would be great to see.
Yeah, absolutely. Finally, but not least, where would you see yourself in 5 years' time?
This is such a difficult question, Chris, because I've never had a plan for my career. It sounds sad to admit, but I just don't know. And I've always kind of just gone with the flow and go, well, this looks like the next best step for me.
Yeah.
The challenge I've got now is I've just got so many opportunities. It's difficult to know in which direction to go, quite frankly. But I've no idea where I'm going to end up in 5 years' time. But it's going to be it's partly the journey is the important thing, not the destination, as they say.
100%.
So I think it's going to be fun to find out, but I've got no idea where I'm going to end up. So
There's no problem with that whatsoever. That's great news. Look, Andy, thanks so much for spending half an hour or so, 40 minutes or so of your valuable time with us. We very much appreciate it. Hopefully our new viewers, and our listeners, existing listeners, have got lots out of this. What we also do, Andy, is when we post this onto social media, which will be probably this time next week, we will also put a link to Wisdom Works
perfect.
on
Thank you.
the link. So any of you who are really interested in Andy's work, please do click on that link and you'll find out a lot more about Wisdom Works and what they're doing in the weird and wonderful world of AI. Look, Andy, thanks so much for your time. And thanks so much for all our listeners and viewers. And we will be back soon with yet another Science of Compliance podcast in our series.
Fantastic. Thank you very much, Chris. Been a pleasure speaking with you. Take care.
Likewise.
Cheers.
Likewise, Andy. Thanks.
Bye-bye.